Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. A month that will be remembered as a turning point in modern history. The world holds its breath, waiting for what comes next. The world is on edge. Uncertainty and anxiety ripple through every continent as people everywhere sense that something monumental is unfolding. Geopolitical tensions are erupting across multiple fronts, from the bustling trade docks of Shanghai, where global commerce is threatened by new restrictions and suspicion, to the war-scarred battlefields of Ukraine, where the conflict has dragged on and intensified, drawing in more international players, and the volatile Middle East, where every missile launch and explosion threatens to ignite a wider regional war. The United States, once the anchor of global stability and a symbol of order, now finds itself at the center of escalating crises, its influence tested like never before. Aggressive new tariffs from the Trump administration threaten to ignite a full-scale trade war with China, sending shockwaves through global markets and raising fears of economic retaliation. Meanwhile, America is deeply entangled in two major military conflicts, stretching its resources and testing its alliances to the breaking point. The U.S. is supporting Israel in the Middle East, providing military aid and diplomatic backing as tensions flare. At the same time, it is backing Ukraine against Russia, supplying weapons and intelligence in a high-stakes standoff with Moscow. These challenges are deeply interconnected, amplifying risks and uncertainty worldwide. Every decision in one region reverberates across the globe, creating a web of consequences. Economic decisions in Washington now trigger immediate security consequences across the globe, as financial markets react and governments scramble to respond. The world's tightly wound system means a single event can send shockwaves everywhere, toppling assumptions and forcing rapid adaptation. As we stand at this crossroads, the choices made in the coming months will shape the global order for generations. The stakes have never been higher. Is the United States heading for a geopolitical crisis? The warning signs are impossible to ignore, and the world is watching, waiting to see what happens next. To understand America's current predicament, we need to trace the evolution of its global strategy, a journey shaped by war, diplomacy, and shifting priorities. After World War II, the United States emerged as a superpower and took the lead in building a new international order. It helped establish institutions like the United Nations and the World Bank, aiming to prevent future conflicts and promote global stability. The U.S. created alliances like NATO and security pacts with Japan and South Korea to project power and ensure collective security. These partnerships were designed to contain the Soviet Union and foster a sense of shared purpose among Western democracies. In the Middle East, U.S. policy has long focused on oil and the security of Israel, making America a key, if controversial, power broker. Its involvement has shaped the region's politics, often drawing both praise and criticism at home and abroad. With China, decades of engagement gave way to competition as Beijing used its economic rise to challenge U.S. dominance. Trade, technology, and military power have become new arenas of rivalry, reshaping the global balance. The America First doctrine, revived under Trump, questions old alliances and prioritizes bilateral deals over global leadership. This marked a sharp turn from decades of multilateralism, signaling a more transactional approach to foreign policy. Many Americans now see the global system as failing to serve their interests. Economic anxiety, job losses, and cultural shifts have fueled skepticism about globalization and America's role in the world. The tensions with China, the Middle East, and even traditional allies are the result of these deep strategic shifts. Old certainties have given way to new uncertainties, leaving both policymakers and citizens searching for answers. Today's crises are rooted in the collision of historical ambitions and present-day realities. The world America helped build is now testing its resolve and adaptability in ways few could have predicted. This is the backdrop for America's current crossroads, a moment defined by uncertainty, debate, and the urgent need to rethink its place in a rapidly changing world. In late September 2025, the U.S.-China trade war reignited as the Trump administration announced sweeping new tariffs. A 100% tariff on imported pharmaceuticals plus steep duties on trucks, furniture, and more sent global markets tumbling. Investors fled to safe havens as stocks in Asia and Europe dropped sharply. The administration's goal, force a decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies, especially in critical sectors like healthcare. But this move risks tit-for-tat retaliation from Beijing, threatening global trade and raising prices for consumers. The Federal Reserve is bracing for inflation, and hopes for interest rate cuts have faded. American businesses now face fresh uncertainty, forced to rethink global strategies. For consumers, the impact will soon be felt in higher prices for medicines and household goods. The economic confrontation is no longer abstract, it's hitting home. The Middle East remains a powder keg, its history marked by deep-seated rivalries, shifting alliances, and unresolved grievances that continue to shape the present. The United States finds itself caught in the crossfire, torn between the demands of high-stakes diplomacy and the ever-present threat of military escalation. Recently, the Trump administration vetoed controversial Israeli annexation plans, a move that sent shockwaves through the region and drew both praise and criticism from global leaders. In the aftermath, Washington pushed forward a new Gaza initiative, an attempt to broker peace while maintaining its influence. Meanwhile, Israel launched its largest missile strike in years against Houthi targets in Yemen, escalating tensions and drawing international attention. This dual approach highlights America's ongoing struggle to balance its historic alliance with Israel, its partnerships with key Arab states, and its efforts to counter Iran's growing influence across the region. The massive strike in Yemen sends a clear and unmistakable message to Tehran, signaling that Israel and its allies are willing to act decisively. But such actions risk destabilizing vital Red Sea shipping lanes, threatening global trade and the flow of essential goods. In response, European warships now escort aid convoys through these dangerous waters, highlighting the growing international concern. This new reality is challenging U.S. strategy and putting additional strain on NATO unity, as allies debate the best path forward. America's unwavering support for Israel remains a cornerstone of its Middle East policy, backed by billions in military aid and advanced weaponry, reinforcing the alliance but also fueling controversy. This support continues to spark outrage across the region, complicating efforts to build broad coalitions and undermining America's image among Arab populations. The death toll in Gaza has soared, with civilians bearing the brunt of the violence and humanitarian crisis deepening by the day. These mounting casualties are intensifying diplomatic challenges for the U.S. As tensions escalate and the world watches, the risk of a wider regional conflict grows, threatening to draw in more nations and ignite new fronts. The U.S. is no longer just a broker at the negotiating table, it's a central player in a dangerous and rapidly evolving game where every move carries global consequences. The stakes for global stability have never been higher, and the world holds its breath as old wounds and new dangers collide. As crises mount elsewhere, the war in Ukraine grinds on, with new Ukrainian drone strikes hitting deep inside Russia. Western allies are now considering using profits from frozen Russian assets to fund Ukraine's defense, a move Moscow calls theft. Russia has retaliated by extending bans on petrol and diesel exports, aiming to squeeze Europe as winter approaches. Oil prices have surged, and Europe faces a looming diesel shock that threatens to drive up costs and fuel inflation. The war is now fought on both the battlefield and in global energy markets. Civilians across Europe are feeling the impact in their daily lives. The conflict's economic fallout is spreading far beyond Ukraine's borders. The stakes for Western unity and resilience are growing by the day. On top of geopolitical turmoil, 2025 brings devastating natural disasters that amplify global instability. Super Typhoon Ragasa crippled China's Pearl River Delta, halting production in a vital economic hub and disrupting global supply chains. Factories shuttered, ports closed, and companies worldwide now brace for shortages and delays. Simultaneously, the Philippines was battered by another storm, displacing hundreds of thousands. These disasters highlight the vulnerability of our interconnected world and the growing impact of climate change. For developing nations, the humanitarian and economic toll is immense, fueling cycles of poverty and instability. Natural disasters now act as crisis multipliers, straining resources and driving new waves of conflict and migration. The convergence of climate and conflict demands resilience and cooperation, at a time when both are in short supply. These global crises are hitting home for ordinary people. New tariffs mean higher prices for medicines and everyday goods, squeezing household budgets and fueling inflation. Supply chain disruptions threaten jobs, as factories dependent on foreign parts face shutdowns. Energy shocks from the Ukraine war drive up fuel and transportation costs across Europe. The world is becoming more divided, with rising suspicion and digital barriers replacing openness. Anxiety and insecurity are on the rise, shaping political behavior and fueling nationalism. The ripple effects of global strategy are now felt at the kitchen table. The personal and economic stakes have never been clearer. Experts warn that the world faces its highest level of geopolitical risk in years. Three major conflicts, Ukraine, the Middle East, and a brewing standoff with Iran, combine with economic uncertainty to create a volatile environment. Analysts argue that America's support for Israel is about more than values. It's a core strategy for controlling energy and projecting power. Economists are nearly unanimous. The new tariffs will drive up inflation, hurt U.S. businesses, and invite Chinese retaliation. The Federal Reserve is cautious, seeing tariffs as a blunt tool that could backfire at home. On Ukraine, some praise the use of frozen Russian assets, while others warn it risks dangerous escalation. The consensus, the current trajectory is unsustainable and only renewed diplomacy can avert catastrophe. The stakes for global peace and prosperity are higher than ever. America stands at a crossroads in late 2025. The convergence of trade war, military conflict, and climate disaster marks the end of an era of U.S. primacy. One path doubles down on America first, escalating trade wars and unilateral action, risking isolation and global instability. The alternative, rebuild alliances, re-engage with multilateral institutions, and lead coordinated responses to global challenges. This requires patience, compromise, and a new kind of leadership, one based on partnership, not just power. The choices made now will determine whether the world slides further into crisis or finds a new equilibrium. For citizens, staying informed and holding leaders accountable is essential. The crisis of 2025 is not just for diplomats, it's a defining challenge for this generation. The world our children inherit depends on the decisions we make today.